The Joseon dynasty of Korea had been a prospering nation in the earlier half of its history. Throughout the 14th, 15th, and 16th centuries, the Joseon dynasty led a golden age in Korean history, creating a stable political structure and churning out advances in the sciences and culture, namely the Korean alphabet, Hangul. However, following invasions by the Japanese and the Manchus in the late 16th and early 17th centuries, Joseon entered a rapid spiral of decline. By the late 19th century, Korea was in a nearly irreversible state of corruption and poverty. Since the late 1500s, the Korean government had been controlled by a number of factions, divided on interpretations of New Confucian philosophy. The factions, while at first engaging in healthy discussions, soon plunged into partisan fighting without any real goals. It became difficult for anybody to join government without being part of a faction. These politicians were mostly elite scholars of the Yangban class, native to the capital region around Hansong, now Seoul. The Yangban class were the upper class of Joseon. Although theoretically, everyone could join government through the royal examination system, the Yangban always had an advantage because they had more time and opportunity for education. Even within the Yangban class, the king would often ally himself with a few of their most powerful in order to strengthen his own power. As a result of this, many of the less prominent Yangban families ended up falling out of favor with the government and losing power. This resulted in the topmost few of the topmost few controlling Korea. Furthermore, most of the new ruling class were families from the capital region. This ended up in too much power being concentrated in Hansong and the interests of other provinces falling out of priority. Local governments took advantage of this new apathy and became corrupt institutions themselves. Members of local governments stealing tax money was more than common. All over the country, the gap between the rich and the poor was expanding rapidly. In the late 17th century, a universal currency was introduced in Korea. Although this helped stabilize the economy at first, corrupt aristocrats soon took advantage of the system. In the harvest season of the fall, when the price of rice is relatively low, the aristocrats would lend rice to the peasants in need. Then, they'd wait until spring to be paid back when the price of rice would jump. The peasants had to pay the new increased price in cash plus interest, which led to the poor getting poorer every year. Many peasants ended up giving up their land and becoming sharecroppers. Taxes also had to be paid in the currency, and many peasants who did not have money were forced to borrow it with interest rates that went up to 1,000%. Rich merchants often stored away money to deliberately cause deflation, allowing themselves to buy goods at a cheaper price at the expense of everybody else. Sometimes they stored away goods to cause inflation, allowing themselves to sell at higher prices. These powerful merchants would even intervene in the affairs of smaller merchants, bullying them into doing less business. King Jeongjo, after ascending the throne in 1776, sought to fix these problems. He restarted the process of sending government inspectors to keep the corruption of local governments in check and protected smaller merchants. He aimed to make the justice system less corrupt and promoted bipartisan cooperation. In essence, Jeongjo's main goal was to restore Hansong's control over the country. Still, Jeongjo's reforms had their limits. In order to fight off those who opposed his reforms, Jeongjo brought in yet even more powerful clans who were allied to him. The most prominent clan that Jeongjo brought in was the Andong Kim clan. Although Andong is in Gyeongsang province, at this point the clan members were all living in the capital. Jeongjo greatly favored Kim Jo-sun, a prominent clan member, and even wanted his son to marry his daughter. This was the beginning of the process of the Andong Kim's takeover of the government. Jeongjo died in 1800 without having completed much of his reforms. Then, 11-year-old Sunjo became king. As he was too young, his step-great-grandmother and conservative Queen Jeongsun became the regent. She began to reverse many of Jeongjo's reforms. She and her supporters persecuted Jeongjo supporters on grounds of her tolerance of Catholicism. However, once Sunjo officially came of age at 15, he and the Andong Kim clan worked together to purge the anti-reformers from government. He also married Kim Jo-sun's daughter in accordance to his late father's wishes. He then continued his father's policies, trying to restore order to the local governments. But his reforms were stalled when a drought struck the country in 1809. Finally, in the winter of 1811, a man named Hong Kyung-le led a major rebellion throughout Pyongan province. Although the rebellion was eventually put down, Sunjo was so shocked by this that he fell ill and lost interest in politics. His son Prince Hyomyoung became regent in 1827, but he died only 3 years later. Furthermore, Prince Hyomyoung's father-in-law, Jo Man-young, had his Pungyangjo clan enter the government en masse as well. This started a great rivalry between the Andong Kims and the Pungyangjos. The system of powerful clans having control of Hansong is today known as Haedo-jeongsi, or rule through power. The now weak Sunjo continued to rule for 4 more years before dying in 1834. Prince Hyomyoung's son, King Hanjong, became king afterwards. Hunjung's paternal grandmother was an Andong Kim and his mother was a Jeongjo. Therefore, Hunjung was constantly stuck in clan warfare. He died in 1849 without having been able to accomplish much. To defeat their rivals once and for all, the Andong Kim clan found an exiled member of the Korean royal family in Ganghwa Island named Lee Won-pum. The Andong Kims placed him on the throne and made him their puppet. Lee Won-pum became King Cheoljong, and under his reign, the Andong Kim clan became the sole masters of government. The Andong Kim clan swept the offices of local government as well. Cheoljong died in 1864. During the rule of King Cheoljong, corruption became so bad that it became nearly impossible for anyone to join government without having connections with or bribing the Andong Kims. At this point, the only people with the resources to do either were elite clans from Hansong. Thus, the government became an oligarchy of rich elites from the capital region. Korea entered the late 19th century in the wake of the threat of new imperialism in this broken state. If you want to learn more about how Korea would fight through these struggles and whether they would survive this period in history, stay tuned for episode 5 of Modern East Asia 101, Unrest in Korea. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.